I think a great way to bring attention to a photograph that has a lot of details in them is to understand how to make them pop and stand out. In this tutorial, I want to show you a quick way that I use in order to really emphasize details without spending a lot of time. The end look you're going to get is as if you spent hours of dodging and burning to achieve exactly what you're going for. A big part of shooting fashion, or a big part of having jewelry or details in a portrait, is making them stand out. Often, if you're doing things like that, clients typically expect it to have a little bit more shape and character to the post-processing as well. And I want to show you a technique that's tried and true for me in making that stand out and pop easily. This example is an indicative statement for any portrait that might have something that you want to make pop, whether it be the eyes, whether it be jewelry, or something else. In this example, we're going to use the flowers and the eyes as a point to utilize the tool and make them stand out. It's actually quite easy to do. First, we're going to assume that this is going to happen towards the end of your workflow, but you can also do it in the beginning or in the middle. It just depends. You just want to make sure that if in theory that you have a few layers on top of your background, you want to make sure that you are selected on the topmost layer of your PSD file. And then we're going to use the action, which is the merge visible action. And that is located over here. If you're not familiar with the actions, make sure you download the actions that are included with this course, but also check out the actions section of the fundamentals so you follow along with how to download the actions and use them. But easily, we'll click on the merge visible stamp, and what that allows us to do is it creates a duplicate image of everything that you're working on up to that point so that you have everything in one layer, in one solid layer. The only reason why I did that was so that when we run a filter, it runs on a part of the image. Because you can't really run a filter on a certain adjustment layer or a blank layer to have it affect everything. You have to have a solid layer. So that merge visible stamp almost flattens everything you've done and puts it on top. Fairly simple. So we'll call this detail pop. And the tool that we're going to use, or the filter, is located under Filter, Other, and High Pass. The key here is that typically high pass is also used for sharpening things in a minor amount, but if we increase the radius just a little bit further, say something that really highlights all the edges of the image, I'm going to hit Command plus so that we're zoomed in here. And you can see the outline of all the flowers are easily identifiable. And they're quite prominent too, which is going to make it pop even more. The same thing for the eyes. You can see the eyes are clearly defined. This radius will obviously change based on the number of megapixels your camera has, as well as how sharp or out of focus it is as well. This is not a rule that you have to do this, but it is surely handy when you want to make something really stand out. So again, over here for this particular situation, I have a 3.7 radius. It doesn't mean that's going to be 3.7 every time. It could be 2, it could be 5. It just depends. So I'll hit OK. And we've created this outline of the details that we want to emphasize. But it does it in a black and white way. However, just to make sure that none of these colors are going to contaminate the image, I'm going to desaturate this layer because there's some colors coming through. On your keyboard, you can hit Command U or Control U, the letter U, and you'll pull up a hue saturation layer. And this is going to change the hue and saturation of this specific layer. So easily we'll go down and bring our saturation to -100 and hit OK. And suddenly everything becomes desaturated. Now we've created a map, a black and white map of the details, which we're going to use to dodge and burn the actual underlying layer. To do that, all we need to do is change the blend mode to either overlay or soft light. So overlay is almost exactly how it sounds. It overlays that layer into the one below it and emphasizes those details based on this high pass. So in sum, you'll notice that as I turn this on and off, the details pop so well. It almost looks like the photo before was really soft, which it really wasn't, as Sue always makes sure that her photos are in focus and they look great. But this just takes things to another level in that when we mask this in, it's going to really enhance some of those areas. So if we don't want this to affect everything, we'll start with a black mask. Before clicking on the mask tool itself, make sure you hold down the Option key and then click on the mask, because what that does is it makes the mask black by default, so it saves you a step. Just in case you have a white mask, you just hit Command-I and makes the mask black. To start brushing in those areas, all we need to do is use the brush tool and then utilize the actual brush. And you can see my opacity and flow is at 100% with a 20% flow. You can also see that I'm not trying to be precise because it doesn't have to be. I think you get away with it even if you're really gentle and just quite general. Let's take a look at this layer here. And you notice, just like that, I'm able to make the flowers pop. This obviously can be a good or bad thing. If you don't want to bring too much focus to a certain area, you don't want to make them pop. But if you're doing jewelry campaigns, or if you're trying to have attention drawn to dresses or eyes, this is the way to do it. The same thing goes for the eyes. If I start brushing the eyes themselves, you'll notice that the eyes also start popping. And I'll do the same thing for the other eye here. So if I turn that off, you can see that eyes pop as well. And even if we zoom in past 100%, you'll still notice the level of detail you're able to carve out. This almost replicates trying to dodge and burn everything manually, which is great. Another element that you can do on top of this as a bonus is what I like to call applying a black and white adjustment layer and also using the mode to overlay or soft light. And I want to show you how that changes everything. So if I go into my adjustment layers and I click on black and white, and I simply change the blend mode to soft light, you'll notice that it's actually quite hard and harsh. However, if I do the same thing where I change the mask to black and take my brush tool and slowly start bringing in the detail, it's going to add a level of contrast to specific areas. And the same thing goes for the eyes as well. Now, because the area is too intense, I'll bring it down. And just like that, you've added a level of contrast to the area as well. So when you combine these two methods, you're able to get a sense of detail and contrast in a way that really brings attention to specific areas. So whether it's jewelry, whether it's eyes or any other details, these two tools should help you getting a lot of detail to pop from the images.